Do any of you know whose image is on our $100 bill in the United States? Does anyone know why? Why would citizens, long after the death of these men, put some of their faces on our currency? Would you like to know? There's a document sitting in the archives of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is not long. It is not complicated. But it may be the most extraordinary retirement program written in the history of this country. It was written in 1789 by a man who'd already lived a remarkable life. He was a printer, a scientist, a founding father. He had signed both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. He lived to tell others about it, while many others did not. And now at age 83, he sat down to write his will. Most people, when they write a will, are thinking about who gets the house, who gets the silver, who gets the money in the account. Benjamin Franklin thought differently. He left 1,000 pounds to the city of Boston and 1,000 pounds to the city of Philadelphia. It's simple enough. Then he added a condition that stopped me cold the first time I read it. The principle is to provide a positive charitable purpose, and it's not to be depleted for 100 years. And after 100 years, you could deplete only a portion for a worthy cause. The rest had to keep growing for another 100 years. Charitable purposes. The man had a 200-year plan. He was 83 years old. He knew he would only be around for months, yet he was speaking in centuries. 200 years later, Boston's share of Franklin's gift had grown to over $5 million, even with those depletions. From 1,000 pounds in 1789 to over 5 million over time. Not because Franklin was a genius investor, not because he had access to hedge funds or some algorithm, but because he understood one important principle that most retirement plans in America today completely ignore. Planning and production should outlast the planner for carefully chosen positive purposes. Ben Franklin would say, learn this. He wasn't building a pile to spin down. He was planting an orchard that would outlast the planter and gardener for years. Today, Boston and Philadelphia eat its fruit. Imagine your entire financial life as a bathtub. For 30 or 40 years, everything flows in that you put in it, your contributions, your employer match, market growth, compounding returns, whatever you put in it, the tub fills slowly, faithfully, beautifully. Then you retire. And the arrows flip. Now everything flows out. Living expenses, health care, taxes, inflation, rising utilities, the car that breaks, that grandchild's tuition, that crisis that doesn't check your calendar before it arrives, that health care expense that didn't get covered. Friends, I watch my parents and my in-laws live this daily, weekly, monthly. And what flows back in? By design, very little or almost nothing. It's just a drain. Slow at first, then faster. Then one day, someone draws a line on the projection and quietly says, yeah, and eventually it runs out, it depletes, but not before you have expired or depleted. That is not a planning failure. That is a vision failure. Franklin never designed a tub to drain. He built orchards that kept producing to bless others as well as his lineage, his grandchildren. If you owned an orchard, would your retirement plan be cut down every tree, stack them up as firewood, pray the pile outlasts you? Of course not. You would harvest the fruit and live on what the orchard produced for you. You'd care for the roots. You'd never think of burning down the very thing that was designed to feed you and others. That's exactly what most retirement plans ask you to do. Spend down what took a lifetime to build up. Deplete to survive. Deplete to live until it's gone. Why not plan to bless others? The shift I'm inviting you to is simple, but profoundly impactful to live. From depletion planning to production planning. From how much can I withdraw to how do I own assets that pay me and pay after I'm gone and bless others. This is not theory. This is exactly how most sophisticated long-term investors operate in the world, including the strongest investment firms. They do not save up and spend down. They build assets that produce. Early in my career, I sat across from the head of investments of one of the largest life insurance companies in America and the world. So I was listening to the director of investments of Northwestern Mutual Life share how they had the strongest earnings of any insurer, the lowest expenses of any insurer, the healthiest insured, so they could pay the strongest dividends to their policyholders. I was 21, I was young, I was managing 20 insurance agents, and I was certain they were crushing it in the stock market, and I hadn't paid attention to the pain of 1973 and 74, 1980, 81. I was short-sighted. I asked if, could I ask him a question? He paused and nodded. I asked, I'll bet your team was crushing it in equities in the stock market, aren't you? He smiled, the kind of smile that says, son, you have a lot to learn. And he said like this, no, we invest very little in the stock market. We cannot predict when there will be a downturn. Another 1929, 1973, 74, 1981, another lost decade, the wrong time. Companies fail, David. Banks fail. Investment firms fail, David. We cannot do that to our policyholders. I'm guessing you have stockbroker friends. And I was baffled. I said, well, then what do you invest in? And he said this, a lot of commercial real estate, a lot of private equity, a lot of that is tied up in multifamily apartments. Assets tied to human life. Rents grow over decades, values grow with good management and those rent growth. We invest in things that will not go away or be technologically outdated in an advancing culture a decade or two later. Let me ask you this, he said, do you live in an apartment? I nodded, yes. He said, have rents gone down since 1945? I didn't have an answer for that question, but I suspected the answer was no. It was no big time. But he said, we are stewards for centuries, for debt holders. Our policyholders trusted us with decades of their earnings. We must protect their capital with much less volatility and stronger returns. And then he said something I've never forgotten. He said, David, teachers' retirement systems, family offices, university endowments, pension funds, the wisest long-term stewards in the world invest this way. We cannot go to our policyholders and say, sorry, we can't pay you, we're out of money because the market had a bad year. That is not a steward. We don't save up and spend down. Dave, in case you didn't recall, more than 25% of the stocks that started in the original S&P 500 are gone today. At this point, almost half of the companies of the original S&P 500 index still hold their spot. What if we thought we were smart and had invested in the other half? Would you tell me that we can't go wrong with the S&P 500 with its diverse exposure to a technologically advancing future? When today, half of these companies are gone or merged or something else? David, I do believe you will learn all these asset classes as you continue your studies, but I want to thank you for asking that question, and thank you for recruiting 20 agents to our company. Very few people do that, not many in our company, and we've never had a college student do that. Thank you for having a top team. They went on, and that conversation planted something in me that's grown for 30 years. Benjamin Franklin would have completely understood that philosophy because he practiced it, he lived it, he believed it. Having retired at 42, having died in his mid-80s, build assets that produce, protect the capital, let the harvest feed people long after the farm is gone. If Ben Franklin could teach, here's a question Ben Franklin would ask each of you today. Do you have to be a teacher's retirement fund to think like this? Do you have to fill your financial tub with purely paper or depletion assets, pennies that go away after you do? Instead of positively impacting lives beyond yours by accumulating assets that pay you so your pennies live into perpetuity? I have a friend, I'll call him James. He's an engineer. He maxed his 401k out for 22 years without missing a single contribution. If you looked at his statements, you'd think it was completely set. But his projection had a shape. Up for years, then it began that curve, then the line that sloped down. He said, what's that? He asked his advisor. He said, that's when you retire, she said. You start drawing down. And James said, and eventually? She said, and eventually it runs out, but typically long after you do. James is an engineer, and he thinks in systems, and after a long, quiet moment, he asked the question that changed everything. is there a model where I build retirement on income instead of depletion? That's when we started talking. Not about becoming a landlord, not about midnight maintenance calls, but about participating passively in professionally managed apartment communities, like pension funds and teacher retirement, university endowments, insurance companies do, passively. Over time, something shifted in James, not just financially, but emotionally. He stopped checking the index every morning. He stopped calculating how many months were left in the projection. He started asking a different question. How well is our system producing, not how low is the tub? He called me about 18 months into it, and he said something I wrote down. He said, Dave, I gave to my church last month without doing the math first. I just gave. He said, and it felt the way that giving was supposed to feel. That's what production planning does. It doesn't just change your balance sheet. It changes your emotional life and your posture. You go from gripping to open-handed, from anxiety that I see to generosity. Benjamin Franklin died in April 17th, 1790. He was 84 years old. He had retired at 42, a former child of 17 children, pulled from formal schooling at age 10 to help in his father's shop because they needed his help. Yet he learned much and he succeeded much because he decided to. No one handed him his living. He actually taught others how to succeed after being an apprentice, and he franchised their earnings as he helped their newspapers grow like he'd helped his own newspaper grow for years. And in the last weeks of his life, knowing his end was near, he did not spend his remaining energy worrying about what would happen to his pile. He spent it planting trees he knew he would never sit under. Trees that you and I would sit under. Trees that your children and my children would sit under. That free Americans celebrating a 250-year anniversary would sit under. He wrote the will. He set the terms. He trusted the principle. And then he let go. 200 years later, his money was still working, still producing, still blessing people he would never meet. Franklin had no advantage over you, except maybe one. He decided not to protect a pile, but to plant a vision. And here is what I want you to carry out of this room today. Not a strategy, not a product. Just one of Franklin's questions. I believe Ben Franklin would ask every one of you, each of you that could hear this. What will your 200-year vision be? You may not live 2 centuries, but your vision absolutely can. The assets you build, properly structured, can produce long after you're gone. They can fund scholarships, support ministries, bless grandchildren who haven't been born yet. Whatever your heart desires, if you plan this. If something stirred in you today, if you saw that drain line projection in your situation, if you want a conversation about how to make that a reality, my team and I would be honored to have that conversation with you. No pitch, no pressure, just an honest and real discussion about where you are, where you want to go, and whether this fits in your situation or not. And if you'd like, I can also send you an ebook and a passive income playbook by email. This is a lot simpler than you think. That's when the tax benefits for doing so will blow your mind and amaze you. Nonetheless, Franklin's pennies became millions over time, over centuries, still producing, still blessing people, still blessing causes. Your decisions can bless people, causes, ministries, scholarships, whatever your heart's led to bless. As Paul Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story. The answer to why Ben Franklin's face might be on our $100 bill. I believe Paul Harvey would ask you, why not you in 100 years? In closing, Ben Franklin would tell you, now it is your turn. Don't depend on a depletion model. Think beyond your years for causes you care about. Your pennies can live into perpetuity. Bless others with your plans and your decisions. Write it down. If you do, I assure you, you will love your life so much more, enjoy your years so much better, and leave a legacy that shines as only your legacy can. And as you celebrate next month, our 250th year anniversary. Imagine the impact your decisions can have on our 300th and 400th year anniversary, because you decided to bless them, and as I did, you wrote it down. Then as mine did, watch your pennies reach into perpetuity. Thank you.